in the beginning, I didn't even know that I could do real estate deals. I didn't even know that it was that possible for me. I thought that was possible for other people, but not for me. And I thought that for like 20 years until I uncovered it and found out what it's all about. And anybody can make money in it, in real estate, if they choose to dedicate themselves to it.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. Excited to have you guys listening today. So I have a new guest. I have actually, believe it or not, I am actually not had a chance to sit down and chat with Bryce. I have not had a chance to personally shake his hand. I have not had a chance to be able to give him one of my legendary hugs. It's the time of COVID. So there you go, guys. So, but the reality is that Bryce is absolutely an expert in the field that I believe I want to bring you, my listeners. So let's find out a lot more about him. I'm going to start with his bio, and then we're going to roll from there. So Bryce Robertson, your real estate mate, you'll notice as soon as you hear him talking, is an Aussie-born real estate investing entrepreneur, #1 international best-selling author, world traveler and adventurer. And of course, once you hear him talking, you'll go, well, of course, that's who he is. Bryce began his investing career with a negative net worth, unseasoned credit, and a mere $2,000 in the bank. Can anybody of you guys out there listening to this relate to that? Maybe you feel like you're not starting with a lot of cash in the bank or even a lot of expertise, but that you know that you can make it work. So Bryce is your guy to listen to. So he's raised millions of dollars and a culmination of success in mobile home park investing. Bryce lives the freedom trinity, which you know I am all about, of financial, time, and location freedom. Bryce is host to the YouTube channel and video podcast Freedom Hack Radio, co-author of the 10,000 Miles to the American Dream. He writes weekly articles for Bigger Pockets and has a #1 top-selling mobile home park investing and capital raising home study course. Bryce, thank you so much for coming to my show.
Great to be here, Christina. Thanks for having me, mate.
It's wonderful to have you. Yeah, I know this is going to be a podcast. It'll also be on like Roku TV. I still call it a show because that's where I started a while ago, was with having a quote unquote radio show. So I have a tendency to treat it that way. So I apologize if that's the case. But let's make this about you and not about me. So tell me a little bit about your background in real estate. Where'd you start? I mean, $2,000 isn't a lot. So talk to me.
Yeah. So, I suppose before real estate, I was in the construction industry for about 20 years. And I actually worked on the tools, and then I worked in management. But I was dissatisfied the whole time. The cool thing was that at the time I was traveling all over the world. I traveled the world for 6 years before I came to America. So I was having a good time, but I was reliant on having to go back to work to create more money, to keep good things happening. So I was in the Caribbean. I met my wife, Tiffany, who's a native Southern Californian. And then I ended up in Huntington Beach. And that was basically where I planted my feet in America. And, once I got here, my wife and I decided that we wanted to recreate the lifestyle that we were living, traveling all over the world and having an amazing time. But this time, not only does our money not run out, it massively compounds and expands as we're traveling and having all this fun. So we looked at the 3 main ways that we could make money, which is real estate, owning a business, and the stock market. And in the beginning, I actually spun plates and did about 7 different strategies at once. I was even doing multi-level marketing, and I was just having mediocre success. So I had to stop, and I looked at my wife, and we just said, all right, I'm going to focus on something, and I'm just going to focus on one thing, laser focus on it and crush it. And I knew real estate was definitely it for me, for sure. And then I looked at real estate, and I looked at all the different ways that we could make money in real estate. And mobile home parks, just over and over again, for so many reasons, ended up being really, really attractive to me. And so I just knuckled down, and I decided, I got educated on mobile home park investing. And I went out there after I got educated. 3 months later, I put my first park under contract. And I suppose the rest is history.
3 months later. So explain to me a little bit about what you are capable of doing so that in 3 months you felt like you were able to bring in a park. Because I work with investors, people who want to become investors. I work with people who are already investors. And I know it takes 3 to 6 months for people to really kind of anchor their feet And then you can start moving into investing. So tell me how you were able to shorten that timeline. Like what education? Was it education? Was it people you knew? Like what made that work for you?
So I probably spent 2 years as a precursor leading up to that point,
That makes sense.
before I had actually chosen mobile home parks as being my singular business strategy. And so through those 2 years, I ended up doing a ton of self-development, a ton of trainings and classes in real estate and stock market and everything. And the main trainings that we did was with T. Harbecker from Peak Potentials. We were with those guys for about 2 years and just had an amazing breakthroughs. And I massively grew as a person. My communication expanded, my negotiation skills expanded, knowing what was possible. Because, in the beginning, I didn't even know that I could do real estate deals. I didn't even know that it was that possible for me. I thought that was possible for other people, but not for me. And I thought that for like 20 years until I uncovered it and found out what it's all about. And anybody can make money in it, in real estate, if they choose to dedicate themselves to it. So yeah, I kind of went off track there. Where were we going?
That's okay. No, I was actually, that's a perfect place for you to pause because I'm going to put my comment in there and then I'll bring you back on track. I am a great believer in that a lot of the people I know who take on leadership roles and are capable of sustaining them seem to have a background in some version of personal growth of some kind. They seem to have taken the time to find that inner space inside of themselves that allows themselves, one, to be seen, two, to be questioned, and three, to step in clarity of their vision and being willing to own that, right? And if you, it just, the people are like, well, what makes you successful in real estate? And, hopefully one of the things that people pull out of my podcast is that one of my theories, one of my philosophies is what makes you successful in real estate is the willingness to be successful and the inner work it takes to face a field that isn't going to always treat you kindly, but will reward you for leadership, will reward you for ownership, will reward you for your why and your sense of purpose and your vision if you're willing to own that. And there's so much power in just owning that, but you can't just, like those are good words, Christina. That sounds really great. Like good, good personal growth and development words, but what does it take to do that on the inside is a whole journey by itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a lot of work. Totally. When I look out, when I started, my communication skills, my writing skills, I was just so far off being the man that I needed to be able to do the deals that I wanted to do. And it's interesting because fast forward, I ended up becoming, after I got my first mobile home park, 2.5 years later, I became financially free, then on to being millionaire, multimillionaire, all that kind of stuff. But the interesting thing about that is that it's not about the money that is created. Essentially, I think way more importantly, it's the man who I've become along that path, because if something happened and all of it got reset to zero right now, I would be able to start so much further down the path because I can put a deal together like that because I've made the contacts, I've got the resources, I've built the credibility, I've got the education, I've got the experience. And that's the most important thing. And so some of us are probably in the beginning looking at ourselves and going, well, I'm not the person that I need to be to get into real estate. Well, I wasn't either. So it doesn't matter. You can change that. Everybody can change that. And there's a million resources out there where we can do that too.
There is a million resources, and you're right. You can change that. And the first important piece is the choice to choose it, the commitment to choose it. So I apologize. You're on top of one of my favorite subjects, which of course, because you don't know me, you don't know that happens to be one of my favorite subjects, but I appreciate you walking right into it. So tell me about Property Works, and what is it about Property Works that you've created? Because this is your company. So what is your guys' niche? What is it that you guys try to get done? Where do you purchase? And then eventually, like, what is it that's so special about you guys? Why should we invest with you over somebody else? Like, I'm going to, come on, dude.
Sure. So I suppose the high level of Property Works is that we have a recession resistant business philosophy. So we like to invest in recession resistant investments. The main asset class in that is mobile home parks, which is by far my number one specialty. We're also involved in multifamily apartments. We also like self-storage, and we have some alternative investments sometimes. Like it was last year or the year before, we rolled out an automatic telemachine fund, which had a real estate component to it because of where the ATMs were located. But all of those business models are recession resistant. So we want to know that in good conditions, in good market conditions, when everything's thriving, we're going to make money, because we believe these are strong asset classes in good times. And then in crazy times, kind of like we're in now, what we're going to see over the next few years, these asset classes perform pretty well. So, for example, right now, mobile home parks, we've got waiting lists at our parks. We've got, I think, a minimum of 15 people at each park right now on waiting lists ready for homes. There's massive demand. We literally can't buy homes quick enough to fill lots and put people in them. There's so much demand right now. Everybody that experiences financial hardship through a recession, there's some people within that have to downsize and downgrade. And then when that compression pushes all the way down to the bottom, I mean, mobile home parks is pretty much the bottom of the tier. So unless you want to live on the streets or live in your car, mobile home parks are generally going to be the cheapest form of living. But there's only 44,000 mobile home parks in America. And arguably, there's about a third of America that needs affordable housing. So the numbers just don't match up. The supply and demand is completely out of whack. And so we feel really good about these asset classes, especially mobile home parks, which is my main niche. And so what makes PropertyWorks different? Well, I've got a background in construction and construction management of 20 years, and we do a lot of value add deals. We love buying properties that have vacant lots, vacant homes. We love remodeling homes. We're even working on the infrastructure and bringing in homes. We don't mind buying a park that's 50% occupied. In fact, right now, we're probably going to be under contract by the end of this week on a park that's 350 spaces. It's got 71 vacant homes and 40 something vacant lots. And so major project, lots of things to do. And so the construction background really, really helps with that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, because if you have 40 vacant lots, you probably don't have the infrastructure to serve those 40 lots, I'm assuming, right? You have
some of
enough
the lots,
electrical and enough plumbing. Go ahead.
Some of the lots we do. Some of them are already developed that used to have homes. Some of them need the infrastructure in place as well. So
okay, and it doesn't sound like that you hesitate on doing that. Like you said, it's sort of a niche that you specialize in. Is that capacity? Now, if I understand correctly, mobile home parks are not generally considered. And again, I'm not a mobile home park expert, so I'm only telling you what I've heard. Mobile home parks aren't necessarily considered being something that a lot of cities embrace as wanting them to have much more of them. So really the mobile home park supply is kind of constricted because they're not building mobile home parks nearly as fast as they're building new single families.
And to quantify that, there's actually a 1% decrease each year in mobile home park inventory because they close more down than they build.
That was I didn't have the statistic, but I was hoping that you did, which actually in some ways makes the inventory even more valuable because there's less of it. There does seem to be the demand. So help me, you said you've got a demand of people waiting to get into your parks. I know it's COVID. We know it's COVID. We know that there's probably more compression of people needing to move down that might be creating part of the demand. But I suspect part of the demand is also how you manage the parks. How do you market them? How do you find your tenants? And do you actually own the homes on the land, or do you sell the homes so that you're just managing the land?
Let's talk about the homes first, and then we'll talk about the marketing. So you're talking.
I did. I asked 2 questions in there. I did.
That's cool. So there's 2 types of mobile homes, essentially. There's a tenant-owned home where the tenant owns a home. They're responsible for the repairs, and all they do is pay lot rent. And in that case, if we had a park full of tenant-owned homes, we're a glorified parking lot. All we have to do is make sure that the water lines are good underground and there's no leaks, there's no sewer backups, keep the grounds clean, collect rents. We're all good. Simple. The other type of home ownership in a mobile home park is a park-owned home. That's when the park owns the home and the tenant rents that off the park. And they could be on a rent-to-own program. They could be on a rent credit program. But regardless, in most circumstances with a park-owned home, the tenant is not responsible for the repairs. The park is. So you can guess which homes get taken care of better than the others.
I assume the park-owned homes. I'm assuming, but you tell me.
Yeah, so the park-owned homes, the tenants don't care for them as well as they care for the homes that they own.
What I meant was that you were more likely to repair something maybe than somebody who owned their own home. But I see where you're going. Sure. Ownership. I apologize. Continue.
Yeah. Yeah, we go in with a good point, because in our park owned homes, we do quarterly inspections and we go inside there and we make sure nothing's getting out of hands and all of that. And we definitely take care of our homes. But what we see is we see a higher turnover rate with park owned homes because people are more transient. They're not as attached there because they don't own the home and they don't take care of it as well. So we don't mind owning park owned homes generally from a general perspective. However, we like to turn them all into tenant owned homes through a rent credit program or through some kind of home ownership program that usually takes about 3 to 5 years, depending on the price point of the home. That way, we're working towards the tenant being responsible for the repairs. Now, do we make money off the park owned homes? Yes, we do. Are they profitable? Yes, they are. But are they profitable in comparison to the amount of effort and management that needs to go into it? Well, that's questionable. And so would I buy a park with 100% park owned homes? Yes, but I'd more than likely turn them all into tenant owned homes. So that's the park owned, tenant owned scenario that we got there. As far as marketing goes, when we're looking at a park right in the beginning, what we want to find is we want to make sure that the park is located in a market that has a big need for affordable housing. This is our key.
Okay.
It's our key to establish this up front. When we establish this up front through our due diligence, then we close, we know we are going to have success with filling lots in our business plan. And so one of the things that we do when we're going through these our due diligence up front is we run a test ad. Okay, we're going to rent the home. The lot rent's going to be $300 a month. The home rent's going to be $250 combined. That's $550. So we put some ads out there, some test ads to rent in this market for a mobile home, $550. And then we use an application called Burner. You pay $5 to get the application installed on your phone, and then you never have to pay again. And what it does is it creates temporary numbers with a area code that suits the area code that you want. So you get to choose the area code, they choose the rest of the number, and then the number lasts for a couple of weeks. We put that number in the ad, people call in, and then it goes to our application and we can track and record all of the calls coming in and texts coming in, but we don't have to answer them. And that lets us know how many responses we get.
Okay.
And then we know that if we get X amount of responses, X amount of people are going to come in and blah, blah, blah. But we want to know that we can have at least 30 responses in 10 days. And so we run it over 2 consecutive weekends and the week in between. And usually it's dramatically under or dramatically over. That's one of the ways we check. Another way that we check is we like to look at, say the mobile home and lot rent was $550, right? So we want to go out and we want to make at least 1.5 times that be the minimum apartment rents in that market. Ideally, we'd like to see it over $1,000 a month. But if it's 1.5 times what the mobile home park living cost is, then there's a pretty decent gap there. And so then the only other options for people in a mobile home park, if they want to go to an apartment, that's a pretty big step. So then we look at single family homes as well, because that's another option for them too. I mean, we like to see the median house pricing of $100,000 or more. And that also establishes for us that there's a big gap between the cost to live in a mobile home park and all of the other types of accommodation. So when we do these things and take these measures up front, we know that we're going to have good demand. And so then as far as marketing goes, we like to use Facebook Marketplace. We use Craigslist. We like Zillow. Zillow works pretty good in a lot of markets. And if you have a mobile home that's expensive enough, then you can actually, I think it's like $5,000 is the breaking point. If it's cheaper than $5,000 as a sales price, then I don't think you can list it on Zillow. And then we used to use newspapers, but we don't really use them anymore because they cost like $200 a week and we don't really get that many good responses from them.
Okay, so the dynamic you just described to me, the financial brackets you've just laid out for me, says to me that you're looking for a specific market. And I'm going to guess, because I'm just listening to you and maybe I can't do the math fast enough, but I'm going to guess that what you're describing to me is that you're really looking for a specific economic tier where the mobile home park exists in a stronger neighborhood. Like you're kind of defining that the neighborhood needs to be of a certain strength, that your mobile home park serves as sort of this bottom tier. Because if you're talking about like mobile home parks being a same price as an apartment rent, does that mean that the mobile home park then is in a poorer neighborhood as well? And therefore they're closer to each other? Because that's what it sounds like you've just bracketed for me.
So I think probably the way that we look at that is
Tell me.
if there's apartments and mobile home parks that are the same cost on rent, we can't guarantee they're going to stay in the mobile home park. Some people are going to choose to stay in an apartment.
Right.
Some people may prefer that. A lot of people would prefer a mobile home because they don't have anybody walking above or beneath them. They have their own yard. They can have a barbecue there. But some people would pick an apartment. So we just want to make sure that there's that much of a clear gap that it wouldn't reasonably be it wouldn't be financially reasonably possible for them to move to their alternative form of accommodation.
It makes sense. That makes sense. So it really does become a specific economic strata. Like I do the same sort of thing, not quite as precisely, but between apartments and single family homes. Like
Hmm.
I want to be able to know that my 2 bedroom apartment fills a particular gap in the greater
Hmm.
market. And if they can simply move out of my apartment into a 2 bedroom home, and the 2 bedroom home is going to be so have so much more value to it because they have their own yard, or they at least have some space of their own. They don't share walls like you're talking about. Then I know that there's a reason why they would choose to stay in my 2 bedroom apartment versus choosing to live in a single family home. Right. So unless
That's
of course
great.
my multi-unit has such amenities to it that the amenities are more attractive than maybe even owning your own home is. And that's generally not how I
Mm.
play. I generally play in the C's, right? B's and C's. So I generally don't play in the A's. So
Hmm.
that's not usually my bracket.
Hmm.
So it really looks like you've done your math to work out where your bracket is and why you want to do this. Help me understand how you help and work with your investors, right? So you've got this great model, mobile home
Hmm.
parks being the primary asset, but also got some diversification in it, where you talked about storage units, right?
Hmm.
And you also talked about having an ATM that came through that was, kind of based in having proper real estate for where your ATMs are going to be.
Hmm.
How do you work with your investors? Are you primarily a fund? Is that what you're doing? I thought I heard some capital raising go by.
We do. We do. I have had funds, and I'm about to have another fund coming up soon. But typically, most of our investments are single asset investments where we'll have a singular mobile home park. We'll get financing for that mobile home park. It'll all be held in an LLC. And then we will be part of the LLC as general partners. And then we'll bring our investors in as limited partners, and they will join us in the deal as well. That's how we structure most of our deals. And, interestingly, so the first deal I did, rewind back, you mentioned it in the beginning. I had a negative net worth, $2,000 in the bank in unseasoned credit, and I wanted to get this mobile home park. And so I put it under contract, and then I just knew that if I had it under contract, I can figure out how to get the money. And so it was way, way harder than what I thought it was going to be to get the money. I thought, oh, this is going to be a breeze. That was a cold shower for sure. But I ended up closing on the deal with family and friends. And then that deal worked out fantastic. I think our investors wanted, they just said, look, if you can get us 12%, if you can get better than 12% each year, we're going to be over the moon. And I had projected more than 20% for them. Well, fast forward, we ended up selling the deal 4.5 years later. They ended up making like 56.7 or 57.6% annual returns. And I realized that I'd learned how to not structure a deal properly, where my investors made like way, way, like tons of money, which was
Right,
cool. I'm so
right.
glad
I
that I did
understand, I
it.
understand, but
But
yes,
I learned how to structure deals after that because I gave a lot of money away essentially.
yeah.
So that is not the expectation of what to expect if you're going to invest with us today. That was a unicorn deal. But once I knew that deal was possible, I just like we closed on the deal. I felt like 10 foot tall because I did this deal and it worked out amazingly. And I brought investors in and I loved it. And so we've kept that business model since. So since then, we have brought investors into all of our deals and we open up all of our deals to investors. And that's the way we do business. Now, mobile home parks has been my main asset class and my main strategy. However, there was a period there where we were experiencing, there were just none of the deals were penciling out. We just didn't have any deals that are penciling out at all. And so in those interim periods, we started to introduce some other asset classes and some other investments just so that we would have something to offer that we still believe fits all of our criteria and everything that we're looking for, but another investment for our investors in the interim as we move on. And that's worked out well, and so we've kept it as well. So we don't do that many multifamily apartments. We may do one a year. And we have operating partners that take care of that. And then with mobile home parks, I'm the main guy. So that's my operation.
Sounds like you know mobile home parks well. So the multi-units, and you said you would do storage units too. Is that along the same lines? Is that when that got integrated?
Yeah, and right now, self-storage seems to be quite attractive for many reasons. It's very similar to mobile home parks in the recession resistance perspective, because people downgrade and they temporarily need to store their stuff in places, and so self-storage works really well over these recession periods.
Okay. So what had you write your book, 10,000 Miles to the American Dream? And it's right here. I'm looking at it, on my screen, right? Which is why did Bryce write the best-selling book, 10,000 Miles to the American Dream? And I am curious, what had you write a book? I mean, clearly you're an operator, right? You like getting stuff done. You like participating in the process itself. Why write a book?
So there's a guy called Reed Goosens. I'm not sure if you've met him. He's another Aussie. He's out of Southern California. He's a multi-family apartment
Yeah,
syndicator.
I think I have met him.
And
I mean, I
and
don't think I talked to him for very long, but I have met him. Yes.
so, being an Australian in the Southern California networking market, people know who you are because there's not many Australians there. So Reed was out there networking. I was out there networking, and there was two Aussies. We got put together. And so we hit it off. I found out he's like 20 minutes down the road from me from where we grew up, but we'd not met before. And then he introduced me to a group of Australians like myself who had come over to America and become financially free through real estate investing. But each of us had our own different niche or asset class or strategy. And so we just started off being a networking group of Aussies, and we did some deals together and masterminded and helped do a little bit of problem solving. And then we met up down in San Diego. We just thought, hey, let's all meet up. And once we met up and we felt the energy of all of us in the room, we all had the same burning desire to talk about this amazing opportunity that exists by investing in real estate in America that doesn't exist in the rest of the world. And so I've been to 60 countries. I've lived in like 5 different continents. I've lived all over the place, lived in a lot of different countries. The barriers of entry to get into business or real estate in other countries is so significantly higher. Like you can't get 3% down loans in the UK or Canada or Australia. You can't start up a business the way that as quickly and easy in other countries. It's a whole nother kettle of fish. So when people outside of America come to America, like us, the real estate mates, we're just like a kid in a candy shop, and it just feels like an open playing field with just abundance of opportunities. It's so much easier to have massive success in this environment because it's set up for it. And we love it. And so we wrote a book about it, and we shared our path to becoming financially free. Each of us had our own path, and each of us had our own strategies, and we share that in our book. And it has inspired a lot of people to change the trajectory of where they were going and get involved in real estate and taking control of their financial freedom.
Okay, you just walked right into one of my next favorite subjects, and you know that. So here's my question. So my question for you is, we get a sense for you're an expert in real estate. We get a sense for you started with not too much, and you've managed to build yourself up to where you are. Tell me, real estate can be a great field. It can really reward you. Like your first deal, it sounds like it really rewarded your investors. And then from there, you've learned how to make sure you're rewarded along with your investors, right? What is the worst deal you've done in real estate? Because real estate isn't always kind, and it isn't always easy. It will demand the best of you, and it will hand you some pretty bad situations. So tell me your worst story in real estate, what you did to fix it, and what it took for you to do that.
Well, I suppose that's an interesting question. I mean, if we're talking about specific events, probably the worst events that have happened is, we've had some mobile homes that have been burnt down because they've been lit on fire. I actually was hiking in Patagonia, and I didn't have any cell reception for like 5 days. And then I got a video after it with a link to a news clip of a home burning down. And I was like, is this your home? And I looked at it. I thought it was funny, like, yeah, sure, that's my home. I looked at it. That's one of our homes in one of our communities.
It really was one of my homes.
Yeah, and we've had gas systems fail where the whole it's been winter. They've been out of a heating source and hot water and all of that kind of stuff. So dealt with those sorts of things in operations. As far as actual deals go,
Yes.
Probably the least exciting deal that I've done is one of the deals that I'm involved in right now. We're about to sell the property. It's going to be listed very shortly here. And our investors are still going to make the returns that we projected for them, even though we might actually, we might close on the deal earlier than our projected business plan.
Mhm.
But it's just through the operations, just so many things went wrong. We had so many challenges. We had a manager that embezzled money. We have a system where checks, they're made out to the park and the checks get scanned and then they go into our system and everything gets divided through the accounting. Well, our manager took these checks and money orders, by the way, that are made out to the park in the park's name, a business name. She went and cashed them at the check cashing place in her name, went to the casino, gambled it, blah, blah, blah. So we had a maintenance guy that stole a truck. We just had like a whole bunch of things that went wrong on that deal. Just anything that could go wrong did go wrong on that deal, but we handled through all of it. And so it's been a little bit of a rocky ride, but all in all, I wouldn't say that it's been a tragedy.
Okay, so two questions. How do you manage your investors through this rocky ride? When did they find out? And the
Mhm.
second question is, how are you going to be able to make them whole? How is
Oh,
it you're going to be able to do that if the deal has been that difficult? Because
oh,
obviously you're making choices to make them whole.
sure,
Clearly,
sure.
that's a choice,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, it's what we're going to do better than make them whole. We're actually they're going to be making the profits that they would have anticipated at this timeline. So we're doing pretty well on the financial side there. So
Okay.
how do we handle the situation? We handle the way the situations were handled was I'm just like open and authentic with my investors, and I just tell them, hey, like this is what's going on. This is how we're going to solve it. This is what we're going to work on, and then I just keep giving people updates. I see a lot of, we do quarterly reports. Sometimes we do monthly reports for our investments, but it's mostly quarterly. I see a lot of quarterly reports from other operators and it sounds all great. It's all great stuff, but they don't talk about any of the things that go wrong. We
Yeah.
like to talk about the things that go wrong as well as the things that go right, because it's the truth. And we don't want to get further down the path and then be like, how are we going to explain this one? We could have started telling them about it like 8 months ago, So
Exactly.
we'd rather just be honest about it. And then that also puts us in a pressured position to be able to solve the problem. So that's how we've communicated about it, been very open and honest about it, and very open book about the way we solve things and the results. And then how do we make investors whole? Well, once these things started going wrong, we realized, hey, we have to speed up our business plan. And now instead of bringing in like 5 homes this year, we're bringing in 15 homes this year. And so we just went crazy and bought a bunch of homes. We installed water meters so that we could fully bill back the water. This is a 200 space park, so we get a big return on investment on that.
Okay.
And we've just been filling lots and selling homes like crazy and just going all out to catch up. And then in addition to that, as we're doing this, cap rates in mobile home parks have been compressing. The market's getting hotter and hotter, which is driving our price up as well. So a combination of those two things is why we're able to make our investors whole, and even better than that.
I appreciate you going into the details of that, because one of the things that it tells me is that your choice was to double down in solving the problem, right? Just the solution set to the problem was to work harder and to implement what we knew was going to be successful faster, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus waiting for or figuring it out or creating a lawsuit, which you probably might be doing as well. And you don't have to tell me about it because you may not be able to talk about a lawsuit. But the point is that your company's solution to the problem was, let's double down, work harder, and straighten this fricker out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the way we underwrite deals and the way we project deals to our investors too is conservative. So we underwrite. So for example, we'd underwrite saying that we're going to fill 5 lots this year, where we know that we actually have the capabilities to potentially fill 10, 15 lots that year.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So if we had have overestimated on what our capabilities were up front, we probably wouldn't have had the wiggle room.
Okay, got it. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then, of course, this is definitely a time where certain asset classes are increasing in value, and investors are looking for places to put money, both pre sort of the end of COVID, but also waiting for this sort of lag that we're expecting to show up right at the end of COVID. So it is interesting to me that there is so much activity. And so in the multi-unit market, you're saying that I'm sorry, in the mobile home market, you're saying cap rates are actually being compressed. So there's more demand.
Mm-hmm.
Is it there's demand from people who want to own and live in the units, or is there just demand from real estate investors looking to purchase in that area because they're expecting that it's going to be a good countercyclical investment?
Both. Yeah, there's high demand for tenants. That's evident. The need for affordable housing is astronomical right now. We literally can't keep up with it. The desire for investors to get involved in mobile home parks is massively increasing. We used to look at a mobile home park, put an offer in, we're the only operator putting an offer in. And then, maybe 2017, 2018, it started to get a bit more. And now we could be up against like 5-10 different offers. But the interesting thing is most of the new people, they don't really know what they're doing, or they've come from multifamily apartments or self-storage over to mobile home parks, applying all the same methods of evaluation to mobile home parks. And I believe that although that is creating a lot of competition, it's not really creating that much competition, because my experience lately is that brokers they don't care so much about purchase price. They want a guy who's going to close on the deal. And we've had that experience with 10 plus brokers spread out all over the place. They're all saying the same thing. So that lets me know there's a lot of people out there that are not performing on closing right now. People that are tying up properties that maybe wish they could pull the deal together, but they can't. So that certainly works to our favor right now. But there's a lot of people out there looking, and there's a lot of people interested in buying mobile home parks. So we have no problems sifting through that at the front, because we've got experience. So we stand out. So that works in our favor. And then on the back end, when we sell, that works great, because we've got a lot more buyers to sell to now.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so one last final question. What is it that has you want to do real estate? Like, you clearly speak the language of financial freedom. You teach it, you speak it, you believe in it. What does financial freedom mean to you? And what are you doing that is creating and cultivating that? Like, I would ask normally, I'd say, hey, what is it about you that would choose real estate over a job? Well, I think we got a pretty good sense for your sense of self-direction and your commitment to that. But so tell me, what does financial freedom mean to you? Why is looking for the words over here. They're off my screen. Give me a minute. You use 3 very important words. The trinity of financial, time, and location freedom. Tell me about that. What does financial freedom mean to you?
So in the beginning, when we were looking at becoming financially free, like literally that was our goal. Our goal was to become financially free. All like 80%, probably 85, maybe even 90% of our goals were financial related. We're like, how much income, what financial outcome are we going to have? Fast forward, we became financially free. Very honored to have had that accolade and achieved that milestone. And then, feeling a lot of gratitude, but also at the same time, simultaneously realizing this doesn't solve all the rest of our problems in our life. It solves the money problem, but relationships and all the other things still need work, and so we looked at it and we're just like, well, this can't be it. What else is there as well? And so I believe, this is my personal belief, that time freedom and location freedom is also very important, because holistically these days, it's not about financial freedom for us. It's about freedom. And all of those, the freedom trinity of financial, time, and location freedom together. Now, interestingly, when you become financially free, you have the choice whether you are going to work or not. And that's the choice that we have. We can work, we can not work. Right now, I'm working probably like 12 hours a day, sometimes 7 days a week. Got a lot of deals going on. It's very exciting. But I know that in 6 months' time, I can shift that and I can go back to working 3 days a week, or maybe even less. In the beginning of 2019, my wife and I, we wanted to go down to Costa Rica. I'm a surfer, wanted to do some surfing down there. We're also looking at some property down there. We were going to spend 3 weeks there. We were down there for 10 days and it wasn't as awesome as what we thought it was. We weren't really getting the vibe on wanting to buy a property there. So my wife says, hey, I found cheap tickets to Chile. Let's go down to Chile. So we went down to Chile, and then we spent 3 months traveling around South America, just living the life. And then after 3 months in South America, my wife says, hey, I found cheap tickets to Paris. Let's go over to Europe. So then we spent 3 months in Europe. And so we spent 6 months traveling the world, touring all over the place. And we still had the ability to grow our businesses. My book was released through that time. I also released a home study course as well. And, but we weren't working much at all. We were probably working maximum 2 days a week while we were traveling, sometimes half a day a week. And then we come back and then I'm working my butt off. And so I have the choice in freedom of financially to be able to turn on work and turn off work at my leisure. Sometimes I'm really motivated. Other times I'm like, yeah, it's time to kick back and relax and just manage everything that we got. And then same thing with our time. We have, well, I just mentioned it then, our time, we can do what we want with our time. We can work, we don't have to work. It's our choice. It's our freedom. It doesn't mean that we don't work. It doesn't mean that we spend all of our time just running around having fun. Business is great. We love it. We can switch it on and switch it off. And the same thing with location too, which is the third key. We can do all of this from anywhere, like I just explained. I've put deals under contract from Hawaii, from different countries, and all we need is our phone and computer and internet connection, and we can get things done. And so ultimately, having that freedom of financial, time, and location freedom literally is the explanation of we can do what we want, when we want, how we want, with who we want, because we want, where we want. It's game on. And that is the way I believe we're meant to live. I truly don't believe, Christina, that we're meant to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, go to the grind. We don't even really dig it for like 30, 40 years and then retire. And then we're not even feeling that good because we don't have top health. That is not the way to live. So
it seems amazingly clear. On that note, Bryce, how do people get a hold of you? Because I think you just spoken the financial freedom dream. So how do people get a hold of you if they want to invest in one of your deals, take your course, read your book? Where do they find you? How do they find you? Other than at Property Works, and you got to explain how it's spelled. So go for it.
Yeah, so you can go to PropertyWorkzUSA.com. Works, it ends with a Z or a Z, depending on where you are on the planet. Or you can email me, Bryce, BRYCE, at PropertyWorkzUSA.com. Again, the Works has a Z or Z in it. Or you can check me out at Freedom Hack Radio, where I talk about the Freedom Trinity, and we dig really deep on the 5 core areas of our life of health, wealth, relationships, spirituality, and having fun. And I believe that when we're growing and maintaining balance in these areas, we live in true fulfillment, and that's what everybody's looking for. And one last thing that I'd like to leave here is that, so many people out there think that, financial freedom is not possible for them. Financial freedom is absolutely, if you're listening to this or watching this, financial freedom is possible for you, and you downright bloody deserve it.
Well stated. Thank you, Bryce. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate your philosophy, and I appreciate your transparency. Thank you so very much. This is Christina Suter with the Real Estate Breakthrough Show. Tune in next week for another show. You can find me on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and of course, Roku TV. Thank you, Bryce. So appreciate it.
Thank you.